Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Paul Hall, Chocolate Saiyan, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Any signs of a physical Earth curve edge, formerly blocking boats and buildings and called Earth curvature?
Not from the Suez Canal.
According to R.C. Meisty, it's the curvature is observable. Observable. I can't even say the word this morning. Observable. It's out there. You can see it. But
no, we're currently being told that got corrected before the pre-show, just for the audience's benefit. So no, we're being told how we wouldn't expect to see a geometric horizon. That's Earth curve. How the geometric horizon only exists in Earth curve maths. That's Earth curve only exists in Earth curve maths. So no, we don't see it. We're told, if we assert that we should see this physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, at the horizon, as asserted by their maths, we're told that that's a straw man to assert such thing. When we debunk it with the black swan, we're told that the assertion that Earth is a sphere is a straw man. Because we say if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, as asserted by the heliocentric model, then every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height. That's globe Earth geometry. Now, when we assert that and then debunk it by showing a horizon that's obviously not physical, horizons aren't physical, and is obviously not Earth curve edge, because it's way in excess of the geometry asserted by Earth curve edges that used to block boats and buildings, we're told that the assertion that we would have an Earth curve edge is a straw man. Of course, we just laugh and say, welcome to Flat Earth. Yeah, we would agree. To assert that we should have Earth curve geometry is indeed a straw man. We don't. We wouldn't expect to see Earth curve. Earth curve only exists in Earth curve maths.
Yeah, but Dr. Michelle Thaler, an inductee in the Space Hall of Fame, says the boats that go over the ocean are blocked by physical Earth curve.
Yeah, she needs to get with the program. She's not keeping up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Given that we are being told that we would not expect to see Earth geometry, and the Earth geometry, Earth curve, geometric horizons, the Earth curve edge she's saying is blocking boats and buildings, only exist in Earth curve maths. So no, Michelle. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Oh, hold on, Nathan, before you move too far away from that. The only other thing they have is the sharpshooter fallacy.
The what fallacy?
We see things disappear. The sharpshooter fallacy. You know, where we make an observation, it matches our prediction, so that's proof of our curvature. So they can find all these pictures that showed boats disappearing from bottom up, and that backs their current rhetoric.
I mean, refraction.
Really?
Refraction.
Where is the prediction for that horizon that's 10 times further than where it should be? Where's that prediction?
That results in us being told that we wouldn't see the geometric horizon, that we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve geometry, and that the geometric horizon that's Earth curve only exists in Earth curve mathematics. So it doesn't. It only exists in the maths, Chocolate. A horizon isn't a physical Earth curve edge obstruction blocking boats and buildings. We wouldn't expect to see that. That only exists in Earth curve maths. However, if you reify the horizon into a physical Earth curve edge by way of mathematical reification of the model that only exists in maths, then you can get the horizon to look within 5% of the mathematics that shows you and your own head in a picture that doesn't have your own head when you take it with a camera. In other words, the maths that ignores perspective completely. That maths gets within 5% on a given day when it's within 5%, of course.
Yeah, but Nathan, at best, you've only debunked the radius of the Earth.
Yeah, they can no longer acquire it by way of a measurement to a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, which we're told is a straw man. Even though Al Bruni's measuring it to give him the R, to later bend light at the same rate of R.
Right.
You mean the Earth is a sphere is a straw man now?
That's what they tell us when we debunk that they can't have the geometry they lay down in their mathematics. They tell us that to assert Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles is a straw man assertion. That's what we're told.
That's pretty
It's
funny.
their straw man assertion.
They've been begging to beg the question for years now. We finally say, okay, if your Earth is a sphere and it's got a certain radius, we'll see this. Then they tell us, well, it's not a sphere of a certain radius. That's a straw man. What? How does that work?
Chocolate. They're jealous. Only we can interpret the radius, not you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
we do it.
Only we can beg the question.
That's bad business. Okay.
Well,
gotcha.
maybe the pole Earth is just getting a little bit older and it's getting a bit of a belly, so it's gained some radius. It's gained some
Yeah,
weight.
it's put on weight. Hey, Sleeping Warrior and Arwin, by the way.
Hey.
Hey, Tony.
Yo,
we move
what's
on
up,
to-
Riley?
We move on to
Chocolate,
axial
you made it
rotation.
out of bed today, did you?
Yes, I made it out of bed. Thank you.
You lazy little shit, yeah?
Hey, well, wait a minute. I just thought of something. If the Earth is put on weight, that means the gas particles put on weight as well, right? Because there's more attraction, there's more weight now, more mass, attracting mass going on.
I'm pretty sure this has already been incorporated into the rebellious gas particles narrative. You know, after they get to their swinging at the Carmen line party, we're not going to obey natural law stage. After a few years, you know, they all eat a few too many cakes and then they put on weight. And then they come back down whether they like it or not because they're big fat gas particles having eaten too many cakes.
Well, hold on. It's past the Carmen line party now. Now we have the after party because the rebellious gas particles have another chapter that go past the moon, according to their little narrative.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah, there's a certain...
Nathan.
It was the 60s particles, 50s and 60s. They rebelled and stayed at the Carmen line. But then in the 90s, although this was kept well under wraps, there was a certain sect or faction of gas particles that went, you know what? We're going to the moon. Yeah, that's right. We're going to the moon. You lot, you fat, rebellious gas particles at the Carmen line, you can stay here and eat your cakes because we're off to the moon.
hey, Chocolate, on Nathan's cake, which layer is the Carmen line?
Arbitrary.
Well, wait a minute though. Here's something else. I just thought of something else that's happened. They had a committee. You know, they put a committee determining what laws are, and so that's also something that happened. These rebellious gas particles got together and put a committee in place to determine what laws are. That's what they did. So they can make their own rules at that point if they determine whatever law they want at this point. That's another aspect of this.
Quick shout out to Shatner's Bassoon, who says, quote, "The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. Full stop. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." End quote. Albert Einstein. Right on. Yeah, the world that you've created, pseudo-Ramonian four-space bending space-time, is merely conceptual and can only be changed if you change your concepts of things. But that's all they were to begin with. It didn't actually change the world at all, merely change people's thinking. But that's not the world, is it? It's their world, Fundy's world, Globehead's world, is a conception of this space that they think they live in, given them Tumstein and Hawking's.
It was Chocolate. You were there, I think, last night. Didn't some of the ballers admit that time and space is not physical? Didn't they admit that? Was you there?
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, if that's the case, How can something not physical cause something to happen? Cause an event? Please
It can't.
explain, callers.
It can't. This is being covered on Ballbusters at the moment in the Master of Science presentation. So in a couple of weeks' time, we'll do part 2. But in part 1, we were covering dependent variables as opposed to independent variables, natural phenomena. And like with independent variables, well, one of the criteria is that it's actually got to be occurring. It's actually got to be something that's happening. The effect has got to be real. You've got to actually be able to observe the effect. So when they say, oh, well, bending space-time's an effect, it's the effect of the uneven distribution of mass, of course. All right, show us this effect. Show us it. What
It's
you'll
not
actually...
physical though. That's it.
Go on.
Well, actually, technically, Nathan, if it's not physical, okay, or made of anything of matter or energy, they can never show it to you.
So it's not an
It's
effect.
immaterial.
So it's not an observable phenomenon. It's not an effect then. It's not an effect you need to fathom the cause for if you can't observe it happening. Yeah. Gravity, the bending of pseudo, the clue is in the title, it's a pseudo geometry. Pseudo Riemannian force space, that's length, breadth, depth, and time. The bending of that space-time, because according to them, the cause of this bending space-time, they've already got down in the maths too. That's the uneven distribution of mass. Yeah? That effect cannot be observed. It's merely a mathematical reification. It doesn't exist. You'll never show it. Now, you might get the odd funder who attempts to point at a light in the sky and start talking about orbital mechanics, an assumption they will foist upon you, unless you're wise and savvy and realise where they're begging the question and asserting their fundamentalist religious belief, and then utilising their mathematics to claim to prove their mathematical reification when pointing at the sky and saying, I've described that mathematically here. Well, Einstein has.
Can I top that and have another special fallacy plea? Special plea fallacy.
Oh, yeah, you're on a roll at the moment with your special pleading. Go ahead.
Right. So, yeah, what if the bending of space-time could be proven by going to Mars and then noticing how the mass of Mars is supposedly smaller than Earth, so the gravity displacement should be less? That would prove that space-time will be bent less by less mass. Right?
We have this method called the scientific method, and it establishes the cause of natural phenomenon. Now, as I just explained in the Master of Science Part 1, Ballbusters, it is going through what is required to be a phenomenon. Now, you've got to actually observe, not assume that this could be a potential thing that exists, and then say, the way I'm going to prove this thing that I've assumed exists is by travelling to a light in the sky I assume is a sphere, based on Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion, based on Christian Huygens' assumption that Venus is the same size as a light, as Earth, when assumed to be a radius value that can't be measured by Al-Biruni, based on Al-Biruni assuming the spheres because of Aristarchus observing shadows in the sky. You're going to tell me that based on all of those assumptions, you can prove something that you haven't actually observed by travelling to a light in the sky based on the assumption of Venus being the same size as Earth and Earth being a sphere based on a shadow on the light in the sky. That's what you're going to do with all those assumptions preceding it, right, Arwin? My God, that was a mouthful.
But they just went to it. So they should arrive there any moment now, and then they can prove it.
Where's it? You've got to be more specific,
To
Baller.
Mars.
No. Excuse me. You think they've travelled to a little red dot in the sky through a sky vacuum based on the distances that they have assumed, based on Christian Huygens' assumption of Venus being the same size as Earth, Earth being a sphere based on Al-Biruni's measurement of R to a horizon that isn't a horizon and isn't Earth curve, and him doing that because Aristarchus assumed Earth was a sphere because of a shadow on a light in the sky. You're telling me that based on all of this, we can actually travel to this light in the sky, even though the journey would involve travelling through a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum to get to this claimed to be rock in the sky that's actually a light in the sky.
Well, they have to get there somewhere, but the launch, they did have very convincing footage with only 3 transitions from cameras, and they ended up with this really great 3D animated live representation of the orientation of the thing with curved Earth underneath it.
I see.
Just to reinforce that. It was just very convincing. I think they might be able to do it.
So, in terms of the resurrection of Aslan, how many angles?
Well, at least 3.
At least 3 for you to be absolutely convinced that this lion was resurrected in a place that has a time dilation issue. Obviously, I'm now going to argue about the time dilation and how it's resolved, because I've fantasized that there's a time dilation problem in this area called Narnia, and that time is actually going much, much slower than it is perceived to be going in this place through a wardrobe that we travel to. So this time dilation I'm going to argue about at quite a long period, for an extended period of time, so that we can segue the fact that 3 cameras only is required for you to believe that a lion was resurrected in this area that has a time dilation problem, correct?
Yeah, but I think that the animation from the lion resurrection was a little bit less convincing, because we were kind of like pre-told before that it was fiction. And I don't think they did that with this Mars launch, even though it did kind of look silly in many ways.
Well, no, the priests often tell people how you can think of things as being real when they're not. And they actually tell you in the next breath. For example, gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. So they just tell you how to fantasize the story and how to play it out and what you should think in order to realize this reification. And then accept the pictures that they send you through the telly box from a place you'll never go because it doesn't exist. Like Narnia. But you're saying because they explicitly tell you Narnia is not real.
Wait, I got a better one. You don't even have to go there. You just go find the old Mars rover. It should have like a gravimeter, and it can tell you exactly how strong the gravity is on Mars.
But the Mars rover went through the same exact travelling process through a second law of thermodynamics violation based on a distance to a red light in the sky given to them by an assumption that Venus has the same radius as Earth, when they assume Earth has a radius based on a measurement by Alberuni that he couldn't get because they couldn't see Earth curve, and he's only making that measurement because Aristarchus assumed the Earth was a sphere to begin with, to give him the distances when applying Kepler's third law. But based on all that nonsense and the violation that is a sky vacuum, you're telling me that they've already sent something there, and that sounds very similar to the retroreflectors, Arwin.
Yeah, they found water and everything.
They've not found water. Really? Oh, it's only happened about 5 times and then got erased from the narrative. That never-ending finding water on Mars. Yeah, they can't get to Mars through a sky vacuum. Go on, Paul. I know you've been itching to get in there. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, even in Narnia, they had eyewitnesses that traveled to this Narnia, came back. They even saw Aslan's death and resurrection. I mean, I'm sorry, but this does be bad, but that's what their argument would be, because we've had people travel there. We've had people travel to the moon, and they're eyewitnesses to this downward vector of the moon having 616 gravity. So there you go. We do have
you mean the eyewitnesses in the form of the alcoholic astronauts that are all depressed and contradicting each other in terms of what they saw of the stars? Those eyewitnesses.
Yeah, Dr. Michelle Thaler said her friends are astronauts and she knows they went there and came back. That's what she says.
Did they bring her a postcard?
No, just a dumb rock.
Yeah, they're lying to you, Michelle. The reason we know is because they're claimed to be travelling in a sky vacuum. Well, we've got this natural law here called entropy. Second law of thermodynamics dictates that if the sky was a vacuum, where your friends are lying to you about travelling to, lying to you, Michelle. Yeah, that's right. Let's call it like it is. The people who say they go to Narnia, my bad. The people who say they go to space are liars. There's no two ways about this. And I'm more than content to piss on the graves of these astronauts. I've done it with, what's his name? M. Scott Veitch, to his face, as much as you can over these internet affairs. His dad lied to him as a child, just flat out lied to him, told him went to Narnia, told him he'd been to outer space, a place that cannot be real. So these people are liars. They're the only example that I can say that. There's plenty of others that you'd love to say, yeah, you're just a liar. You can't necessarily prove that. I can prove all astronauts who claim to go to space are liars. Fact. Because they have not the place they claim to go violates natural law. So, like with M. Scott Veach and his father lying to his face, these people who've told this Michelle Thaler that they've been to space, they've lied to your face.
That must be painful for him, Scott Veach, man. Poor guy.
Yeah, very painful. I'd be ashamed if my father had looked me in the eye and told me he'd been to space. Now, given that I know unequivocally that that's not a real place.
As I.
But that's his cross to bear. That's not my problem.
Well, to be fair, Nathan, space is definitely not the vacuum they say it is. That would make no sense. It's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. But we don't really know how high it goes up. So there might be room up there. It might even work slightly different as what we would expect. But it's not how they say it is, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, currently, space is very well defined. 10 to the minus 17 Tor vacuum. That's what outer space is. And that's where they claim to go. That's where they claim to travel to. That's what they claim to have travelled through to take the Mars rover to the light in the sky based on the distances given to them by an assumption of Venus being the same size as Earth, and Earth being a sphere by way of an Aristarchus assumption based on lights in the sky and what he called shadows, and Al-Biruni measuring a horizon that isn't physical. So, this is all nonsense. The sky vacuum is not real. Therefore, all people who claim to have been there are liars.
I mean, I especially believe those guys when, they can't figure out whether they saw stars or not. That makes me believe them so much more. I don't know why you guys don't believe them. They make sense to me.
Oh, I think I saw that YouTube clip where the Massimino was one of the astronauts. The other one was that goofy one, and all he does is sound like yeah, that's right, yeah.
And you
like,
see
what?
stars. You see the zodiacal lights. Yeah, that's how he sounds.
I think you're talking about Michael Collins, though, aren't you? So, what's the guy who did this?
No, not Michael Collins. The other guy, the guy who says
Don Pettit.
The guy we lost information, all that NASA information.
Well, then you gotta leave.
Telemetry.
There's a few of them because Michael Collins with the little elbow bump from Neil Armstrong. Then you got Chris Hadfield, who himself has been supposedly in the tin can that's up there, the ISS, but he has been on camera both times saying, "Oh, it's the blackest of black, and then it's the brightest of bright."
Well,
So he can't figure that out.
Chocolate. How'd they get those star trails from the ISS then?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Perfect timing.
Apparently now their equipment's a little better because now all of a sudden you can see stars from the ISS. Isn't that cute?
Anthony, are you there? Sleeping Warrior. Hello, Sleeping Warrior.
I am. I'm busy dealing with John Watson being a massive troll in chat.
Right, if you can draw yourself away from the chat for temporarily. Any chance you can regurgitate your back and forth conversation with Mitchell from Australia? Any chance you can share that with the public audience? I'm sure he wouldn't mind.
Do you mean on screen, or do you mean
just no? You don't have to share it on screen, but if you can just read out your exchange between you and he over the last 24 hours, I'd be very grateful because I was riveted while you were reading it out to me this morning.
Okay, I'll do it in my best reading voice. I messaged him this morning, 9:10, and I said, if Coriolis effect applies to Earth, as you correctly point out, the stars must stop turning as we get off the Earth. They say that planes are still in our frame of reference. Bullshit, but let's give it to them for now. NASA claim that the International Space Station also sees circumpolar star trails. Just do a search on YouTube for star trails, ISS, NASA. That cannot happen. They are definitely in the inertial frame of reference, so one of two things is true. Either NASA are faking space, or Earth is not turning, or both. The stars must stop turning once we get off the Earth. The International Space Station is defo in that inertial frame of reference. That's your next video, bud. Then his response was, I agree. Star trails are impossible from the International Space Station, and it absolutely must be in the inertial frame of reference because it goes round the Earth every 90 minutes or so. Nowhere near lockstep with rotation, as they say that everything else is. It isn't powered flight, so there's no control over its trajectory, and is claimed to be falling perfectly around the globe, completely independent of any rotating frame of reference. They must be in the inertial frame of reference. Therefore, star trails are impossible, and the pictures are completely faked. Even if Earth was a globe, it doesn't work on their model. And I said, yes, linear movement, rotation, no. They can't have circumpolar star rotation in the inertial frame of reference from the International Space Station, because that's what they tell us is the cause of circumpolar star trails, the Earth turning. Well, when you're not in that turning frame of reference anymore, like the international, let's be honest, even a Cessna jet at 20,000 feet isn't in that frame of reference anymore. It's off it. Them circumpolar star trails stop turning because you're not on that rotating frame of reference anymore. So yes, they might zip past your window, but they ain't going to be doing circumpolar star trails. So it's proof that NASA are faking their evidence. Mitchell is completely right.
Yeah, another big shout out to Mitchell from Australia. Good job.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like he's taken my question about the hurricanes and why they appear to continue to rotate in the inertial reference frame and extended it out to the stars. Way to go.
I think actually you'll find he's taken my evidence of how drones wouldn't drift on a roundabout and he's extended that out to debunk the stars. I think he's stolen it from me, actually, Chocolate.
Oh, no, the hurricane's higher than the merry-go-round, damn it. But yeah, it's a great point, man.
I'd like to want, like most people basically, most ballers generally give us a buy or a pass on NASA because they kind of accept that neither side can verify or validate any evidence that NASA claims because none of us can get up to where they claim they're giving us the evidence from. So they kind of just give us a buy. There's only Jeremy that I know that actually argues stuff from NASA. Everybody else just lets us away with it because like they realize, right? But if there's any baller that can argue why it is that International Space Station footage is showing circumpolar star trails, we need to hear that because it's the whole point of the Earth turning, causing the sky rotating. That's what you tell us is causing it, Earth rotation. But the International Space Station is definitely not in our non-inertial frame of reference, is it? It's definitely out of it. So what's the explanation, guys?
Is that a brand new thing? The star rotation from the ISS?
No, they've had it out for a while, but we've only just picked up on it because these topics get more and more refined over time, don't they? And we realize that, hang on a minute, and it's so blatantly, obviously wrong that it's like maybe they did it on purpose to see how long it takes for us to spot it.
Well, that's why I'm asking because I don't know the old footage. I don't remember seeing stars. The stars from the ISS thing to me is new. I haven't seen too many videos with stars from the ISS.
You're worrying too much about this. I appreciate that in the lore of space, they used to not have stars in the footage, and now suddenly we've got stars in the footage. But because it's a region, as Anthony's just detailed, that you're never going to verify anything from, and in technical terms can't exist because of the second law of thermodynamics. But that aside, because that is where their narrative's coming from, it's like Narnia. If I decide that we need 5 camera angles on Aslan rather than just 3 to convince the audience he's come back to life, then let it be so. Now, if in the story of Narnia in the screenplay, there is no stars in Narnia, then so it be. However, if in 10 years from now I decide that actually Narnia could do with some stars, and we refilm it with 30 cameras on the resurrection scene, and there is stars, then I can just explain why there's stars now, and why there wasn't stars before. Well, it would be the camera technology, wouldn't it? Obviously. I can make up anything I like from space.
It wasn't sensitive enough back then.
Yeah, you got it, Arwin. I could just make up any old crap.
Well, the reason I ask is because it would be kind of funny if, they started doing this now because people are starting to say, hey, why don't we see stars from the ISS? And then they just started, obviously the stars rotate. So let's just make them rotate from the ISS, not thinking, hey, they're only supposed to be rotating because we're on a spinning non-inertial reference frame, aka globe Earth, that's rotating from west to east.
Make a note
So-
of this show. Make a note of this show. 1, 2, 2, 3. Right. This is going to be one of them things that they're going to have to retrospectively change. They're going to have to remove the previous videos showing circumpolar star trails from the ISS. They're all going to come out as straight lines now. Yeah, you can have your straight lines, but you can't have your circumpolar ones. So they're all going to get removed now. They're going to have to.
Hold on.
Download them.
But I don't really get it. How much is a cycle? How long does it take for the ISS to go around the Earth? Does it take 24 hours?
Is it
90
like,
minutes.
It's like 90 minutes.
Right. So that means there's definitely going to be star trails.
Hold on.
They're
Stop.
just going to be the
Stop.
other way
Stop.
around.
Stop. This is why this is happening. I've got to get this out of the way. I'm going to nip this in the bud straight away. So before we've even tried to explain what's going on in terms of how they acquire the circly looking lights in their CGI, right, before we've even done that, we're into assuming that they're in an orbit, falling around an assumed spherical Earth, and the duration of this assumed falling around an assumed sphere Earth is 90 minutes. Then we get to they're in space. So they're falling with a presupposed orbit around a presupposed Earth in a presupposed violation of natural law to acquire these star trails. So what we're going to do, we're going to beg the question 3 times over just so we can have this argument with Globers, because that's the point in this. They make it so terrible so that when the argument comes around, like rockets working in a vacuum, so that you can assume they've left a sphere Earth and travelled through a sky vacuum, rather than debunking the idea that we've got a sphere Earth in the first place and a sky vacuum and an orbit for it to fall in. It's got none of those things. They're all assumptions.
Nathan, I got some images
but
and
the
master.
point was
hang
brought
on,
up,
hang on.
and
hang
it
on.
take
Nate.
only when it
Oh,
takes
gosh.
only 90 minutes. That means
That's what I was going to say.
it's
If
going
only
to be
90 minutes-
faster than the star trails. It's actually going to catch up on it
Yeah,
technically,
that's what I was going to say.
presuming that it was taken from real footage, which it probably was. I don't think it's like 3D animatedly placed in there. It's just plain footage that they just interjected into it in a green screen fashion. So
Nathan, I got images for you.
I've got it. Thank you.
We
10th man,
covered
I've got
this
one.
over a month ago.
Yeah, we did. You did cover this very extensively, 10th man. But yes, it's worth covering again because mainly because of Mitchell from Australia. You know, he's pointing out that we have the star movement is an apparent movement, meaning it's not actually moving. The stars aren't moving in position. They're not moving above our head according to the heliocentric model. We're moving under them. So they're only appearing to move because Earth's turning, giving you these circular motions. Well, that's Coriolis, if you want to detail it as a not actual deflection, because they're not moving, we are underneath, on a rotating, claimed to be spinning Earth. So when you leave the spinning Earth, well then there isn't any apparent movement anymore. There's only the movement of this begging the question falling around Earth, which is what I think they actually want us to argue about. Well, let's detail how these star trails have been acquired while we automatically all talk and assume about the sphere Earth we're falling around in this begging the question orbit that we're going to claim's happening.
no, that's not what I was doing. I was just pinpointing the origin of the footage. And
the other
if
thing
you take
is-
a plane and you fly it parallel to the equator or slightly north to the equator, then on that plane, if it goes perfectly geometrically straight, and you presume the equator to be a straight line, or you go with the circle, you're going to see in the north the star trail happening on that plane, if it is sensitive enough to pick that up. But since it is flying at incredible speeds past the equator, that means that it's going to, create an apparent circular acceleration.
Okay,
of the
I want Anthony to get a word because he's been trying for ages, but we're just juxtaposing 2 different things against each other in this discussion now. So flying over a plane is very different to the assumption of falling in an orbit around a sphere. And that's what this is claimed to be by way of begging the question and nothing more. So when we say, well, we could potentially see it from a plane or not potentially see it from a plane as it's flying, well, no, because it's not claimed to be flying. It's claimed to be falling. It's claimed to be in a sky vacuum. It's not claimed to be in our atmosphere. Not that air can take a shape unless it's in a container. But that's what they say. So all of those things have now been sidetracked by you saying, well, it's flying over a plane and potentially the star trails are doing X, Y, or Z. Anyway, sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
To round out the point, please let me round it out.
Yeah, okay, go on, Arwen.
All I'm saying is that's the origin footage. That's it. Not saying
No, I know what you're saying, and 10th Man made that point initially. It's probably just transposed actual footage layered over the top of it. But how they construct the CGI is kind of, to me, it seems like obvious, but these days I think it's not. You should mention these things, so thank you.
All right.
Continue. Go ahead, Anthony.
If you think about the claim that they take 90 minutes to do a whole orbit, one orbit of the Earth, right? How on earth would they get these circumpolar star trails anyway? Because in the time it takes to get like 15 degrees of Earth turn, that's like an hour, isn't it? But in 90 minutes, they've gone all the way around the Earth. So how are they getting these star trails, even if they could be possible? How could they possibly get it when in the time it takes to get 15 degrees of rotation, it's already pretty much coming back round to where it started from in the first place? It's ridiculous.
At 17,500 miles per hour, no less.
Yeah.
Oh, it's absurd.
By that respect, then, if you were to get in a helicopter and, take off and hover, two things should happen. The Earth should start spinning underneath you, and the stars should stop.
Correct. Because that's the thing they tell us is causing the circumpolar star trails. It's the Earth turning, right?
Yep. So two things should start happening. Or one should start and one should stop, and none of that happens. Very nice.
Just to give a quick shout out to Godzilla37, who says they believe in bendy space-time, while calling me crazy for believing in a creator. Anyways, keep up the great work, Nathan and team. Thank you very much, Godzilla37. Really appreciate your support. Thanks for the super chat.
You've got to consider the Earth is at the equator, supposedly turning at 1,039 miles per hour. These star trails, the pictures that I take from California, I'm estimated where I'm at, latitude is 860 miles per hour. I just took some last night. I took some all last month. They look very similar to this picture that you have up there right now with the hayfields, I think, in front of it here from Earth. The problem is the ISS is going 17 times faster than the Earth is supposed to be turning at the equator. So the images would not be the same. Just like you taking a picture at 40 miles per hour in your car and then taking a picture at, say, 250 miles per hour from your car. Everything's going to be zooming past you much faster. Plus, Mitchell said it, is the ISS doing a barrel roll? And in 90 minutes, it's almost around the whole Earth. You can't have that picture like Anthony said. This is an overlay. They're lying again.
So I want someone to address the question: if we got a drone and it was hovering above the Earth, and it was conserving its momentum, right? Conservation of momentum. The stars should stop turning from its perspective, even though it's conserving its momentum, because even though it's going with the Earth rotation, it's not with the Earth rotation anymore, is it? It's off it. So Chocolate's right. The star trail should stop, and even if it did conserve its momentum, they should become like straight lines across the sky, not circumpolar, because you're not on it anymore. Right?
Every at the beginning in late 2016, when I was investigating star trails and photography for it, it was obvious, certain proof that the stars are turning and not the Earth. And that's why I said star trails is death nail to the Earth reification model that they have. And now that Mitchell put out his video and we're discussing the inner workings, you can see why. Because the navigators to this day that I've contacted via email say we have to assume the Earth is motionless and that the stars are turning for us to do our celestial navigation with the sextant. And I said, why? And the answer was, because it works better that way. Enough said. Wake up, Clovers.
Why would it work better that way if it's just the exact opposite?
Because that's the way it works. And this is the Jedi mind trick. There is no R. There is no rotation. It's just a Jedi mind trick. The whole thing is a thought experiment. It's a mathematical reification, like Nathan has always said. And they got you living in Narnia.
I got something that might confirm that they lied to us. And I don't know if you guys, most of you probably aware, shout out to Taboo Conspiracy. He seems to get emails from people that are whistleblowers. And here he has, on this video, you can see, and I pulled the transcript up so you can kind of see it, so I don't have to play it. But there's a guy that was doing plot plans for Qantas Air, I think it was. And he said that in their system that they take flat maps and convert it into a globe for flight plans. And he didn't understand why. I think even in the video and in the email, he kind of questioned his employees, why do they do that? And I don't know if they had an answer or not. I don't remember exactly, but I thought that was interesting. And then there was another video that came out the next day. Go to that one. And this guy's from the military. And he remained anonymous on this one. But in this one, he noticed that when they were trying to do GPS coordinate systems in the southern hemisphere, whenever they were trying to do it using the globe and the GPS in the southern hemisphere, their coordinates, their targeting was off. It was inaccurate. Well, the so-called southern hemisphere. And of course, it was one of those things. And there was a skew, you call it ballistic targeting skew guidance, I think, or something like that, that was built into the system that supposedly counted and converted and did all the calculations for them. So it was just another potential confirmation that could the government be lying or withholding something from us. And here's two whistleblowers that may be confirming that.
Yeah, I saw those videos. Well, I saw the first one.
I was going to say I saw the first one. I didn't see this most recent one you've just described.
So again, Nathan.
The one about the Southern Hemisphere I've not yet seen, but thank you for detailing it. The first one, yes, I had seen the first one. But yeah, this is typical Ben Taboo Conspiracy exposure. Subscribe today to Taboo Conspiracy. Ben is ace.
Any ballers want to tell us why the stars are rotating when we're not on the non-inertial spinning reference frame, aka Earth? Please.
Pretty, please.
Cherry on top.
All you're going to get is them begging the question. So you're just going to have them telling you how the ISS is falling around Earth, and then I'll tell you about the speed it's falling around Earth when Earth's assumed to be a sphere. That's what you'll get.
I don't care about the ISS. I'm asking about simply hovering over a merry-go-round or just in a helicopter hovering. Why is anything in the sky rotating? The reason for that rotation is because you're on the rotating surface of the Earth.
Well, Chocolate, if they answer because the atmosphere turns with the non-rotating surface as one, then you got a problem with the ISS picture because that has no atmosphere in the.
We also got a problem with the stars because I don't remember them being in the fucking atmosphere.
No, then we got another problem because half the astronauts never saw stars in space, and this group is taking star trails. What's going on?
They're the cool kids group.
Well, it's tough for navigators. For half the time there was no stars. How did we navigate? This is such nonsense. They're there, they're not there. Astronauts elbowing each other.
There's an interesting claim from chat. A guy called Just Phil. He says, I put satellites in orbit, you goof. Think about what that means. I'd like to see the evidence when putting satellites. What did you do? Did you swing it around your head in a catapult and launch it? How did you get them into orbit?
I just said this. So within 30 seconds. So we're assuming orbits then. One physical body falling around another body, in this example, in a sky vacuum. Way to beg the question.
If that guy's name is Just Phil, he's probably making fun of Just Phil.
He's making fun of Just Phil Bell.
Yeah, Professor Phil that's not really a professor. He drives around in a Mercedes, apparently, a 2020
satellites in space.
Apparently, that adds credibility to him.
I see that as embedded confessions. So when somebody like that starts boasting about how much money they earn and how they get paid anyway and how they drive the big posh car. It's like, okay, so what you're telling me is your shallow materialistic nature is good enough for you, or it isn't good enough for you, but telling me about it when you've been defeated in regards to a sky vacuum, for example, where you thought you were sending items and were very proud to have done so, you'd rather just assert that, well, even though I've lost this argument, I'm still getting paid, I drive a very nice Mercedes. It's like, well, if that comforts you in the face of losing the sky vacuum to entropy, or Earth curve to the black swan, or star rotation with Coriolis deviation, if you're somehow upset about those things, you'll find comfort in your materialism, that you've rested on your laurels in your heliocentric worldview. It encourages that. In many ways, it's the foundation. So is it a shock that they go, yeah, but I'm doing really well financially? Yeah, okay. I could do the converse. Be very depressing for me to moan out how poor I am, but I'm very happy. I've got very little cognitive stress about the world I live in. However, if I'd gone around telling everyone how proud I was to have sent things to a second law of thermodynamics sky vacuum violation of natural law, then I'd probably be saying, well, I've still got a very nice car though, haven't I? Unlike you've got a rubbish car. Yeah, but I'm really happy.
Nathan, it's called an appeal to Mercedes.
Appeal to what, Anthony?
It's called an appeal to a Mercedes fallacy.
That's what I called it, yeah, in the chat. Appeal to Mercedes fallacy. Right.
I think it's nervousness. I think when you're in a chat like the arena and your arguments are getting destroyed, but you want to assert that, oh, I just make money doing this, so I'm never going to be worried about it. Yeah, that sounds like you're worried about it. Because if you weren't, what are you doing in a flat Earth server? Arguing with flat earthers who you think are stupid.
That was kind of what I was trying to say.
Don't you have satellites to go maneuver with your little joystick?
That's what I was trying to say, Chocolate. You've said it much better than I did. Exactly. You're projecting it out into the world, and in reality, you're just telling us what you're actually worried about. Like some dude who came here was telling us that he was worried about the Freemasons getting him by saying, aren't you worried that the Freemasons will come after you for exposing the globe lie? No, but it seems you are.
Exactly my point.
Another super chat.
Just Phil says it means people pay me a lot of money to put satellites into orbit. I thought you were a teacher. Teachers don't put satellites into orbit.
Unicorn Laser Eye says argument to the purse fallacy.
Nah, it's arguments. It's just it's like it's no different to appealing to the I've got a degree in physics, or I'm or what's that PhD Tony guy? I'm a scientist. He's a geological scientist because he plays with gravimeters all day. Well, it's the same thing. You will respect my Mercedes.
It's overcompensating. So in the same way a man with a small penis will go out and buy a big sports car to compensate for his small penis, these guys lose in their discussion about the nature of reality and say, but I've got a big car though, or I've got lots of money, or I still get paid, or I still get respect. Okay, well that must be very comforting, having lost this argument. Good for you.
Be great if we had a baller that could defend the circumpolar star trails from the ISS point. Rumpus, are you listening? Have you got an explanation for this nonsense? I'm sure Mitchell will be dealing with this directly, like imminently, because he's right.
Well, based on the big sports car, I guess I'm never going to get one.
Yeah.
Can do a quick plug to a show that's going out as soon as this live stream finishes. So in about 10 minutes time I'll be asking people who are watching the show on premiering stream to stay tuned, but however the people who are actually watching live right here right now, there's going to be a premiering stream that starts after the show is finished at 3 p.m. UK time. So I've just spammed the link to that. I've already scheduled the show to start at 3 p.m. so it will go out literally as soon as this live stream finishes. So be here or be sphere to see an edited version of Rumpus White Knighting for Thunderfoot. So Anthony, I mentioned this once earlier on the show, but Anthony talked me into having Rumpus on the show to defend Thunderfoot's assertion that gas go down, go boom boom like solid bonded bouncy balls. Now, initially I was like, I don't need Rumpus. But Anthony convinced me, and then at the end, good to form, and therefore he's not getting any grief, was like, I should be apologising for the terrible performance of my learned friend here today, because he did terribly.
Yeah. I mean, Rumpus is my favourite baller. He is. He's the one that is the most pain in the ass, obnoxious and annoying. But he demonstrates beautifully how these guys they'll double speak. They'll do everything about. He just does everything. He knows all the tricks. That's why I like him so much.
We do have a geometric horizon. We don't.
Knows all the tricks. You mean he knows how to obfuscate with the best of them?
Yeah, I remember Brandon Toy when he was chatting with GeoStreamer, and GeoStreamer was talking about Etvos effect, and he brought up that graph. I'm sure you've all seen it, the 4-axis graph. And he was about to say that this is reification in the sense that there's no direct supporting evidence to prove that Etvos is true. And Rumpus spotted it, committed a tactical foul, got kicked out in the process. Brandon was literally about to drip it off his tongue that it was reification, and the point got lost because Rumpus realised that Brandon was just about to expose the nonsense. Well, Etvos only works in your model, but there's no evidence it's actually true. So Brandon was about to point that out. Rumpus spotted it, took a tactical foul, got kicked out for it, and then the point got lost.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, though. When you're on the losing side, then, yeah, it's fouling and fallacies and, whatever it takes, right? Obviously, you don't have your priests doing that. You have nameless, faceless wankers doing it, who have no credibility and none to lose. So it makes no difference if they lie or even defy the priesthood. They can do that down here in the trenches, these nameless, faceless trolls that we encounter. Because who cares if we show Rumpus to be wrong, right? Who is Rumpus? Rumpus is a name for a disturbance. A nickname he's given himself to typify what he does.
Yeah, I see that as a tip of the cap and an admission that he knows that he's doing this stuff.
Of course.
By the way, let me give a shout out to Spurs Chemo. Are you aware of what happened last night with Spurs?
I wasn't, but I'm sure I'll catch up with it. I watch a lot of Spurs Chemo recently.
Yeah, he's he got, for some reason, he was on Fight the Flat Earth, and I don't know why he does it, but he went on anyway, and he had that the PhD Tony guy, and the first question that PhD Tony asked him was, and I haven't watched all of this, but it's definitely worth watching. He says to him, hey Spurs, just before we get going, he says, have you done any science since the last time we spoke? And brilliantly, he asked for a definition for science. And then he started mumbling his words saying, wow, we don't really have any definitions for science. They're all kind of philosophical. And you can't, and because he knew that he was going to start asking about scientific method. And obviously, PhD Tony doesn't comply with scientific method while he's playing around in fields all day with gravimeters. So he's going to be on the side of the interpretation that's very loose with the interpretation because he wants to be seen by Spurs and the audience as a scientist, even though he doesn't comply with scientific method and satisfies the definition for pseudoscience. Yet Spurs started asking him for the definition for science, and you want to watch the guy squirm. It's brilliant.
Epic.
Shout out to Spurs. You did great from what I saw so far.
Would you agree with our assessment over the last few days? We're saying that the reason these PhDs are here is because they've recognised that suddenly they've got something to lose in this arena.
Well, the thing is, they can't be PhDs because if they really were PhDs, the reality would be you wouldn't come into this because you've only got something to lose. You've got no benefit to coming into this topic. But if they chuck in a few blokes with the name Professor Phil Bell and PhD Tony to add a little bit of perceived credibility to their failing, floundering arguments, then yeah, it might appear that way. But it's a bit like Coriolis. It appears that there's a deflection there, but there's not really a deflection. Yeah, that's what's going on now. We're getting these people with these. And have you noticed as well, they've all got these bookcases in the background with books on them, giving the impression that they're intelligent. Fucking hell, if I got my bookcase out and put that in the background, they'd be calling me a fraud or a thief. But when they do it, it's seen as intelligence.
Why are all those comics stolen?
No, not comics. Yeah, they might be stolen. No, the actual books. So a lot of them, like, well, I can't think who now because I was watching Pippa, I think it is. I flicked onto her. She happened to be live.
Sorry,
and I noticed they've all got bookshelves.
Pippin Flick book, did you say? The Beano Annual doesn't count as a book.
No, the Mayfair mags and the Escort mags, they're the ones that are nicked.
Yeah.
You slip them under your top.
Yeah, the
But my
annual
point is that they've
Playboy,
got this-
not a book.
Yeah. They've got this perception, though, that creates this. They've got this image going on that creates the perception that they're intelligent because they've got the books in the background. Well, I might just put my books in the background too, and then just see how long it takes before they start doing the opposite and calling me a fake.
They're like laughing at us too. So Phil Bell, just Phil Bell in the audience, a sleeping warrior. We are here to laugh at you. Is that right? So let's have a quick chuckle at Phil. Phil sat on a panel with people who were laughing at us because we said that water vapour was gas. And, quote, Phil Bell said that was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard, whilst in agreement with his compadres on the Globe side of this argument that water vapour is not gas. Now, I might point out that this guy, just Phil Bell, works in hydrology.
What was he saying that water vapour was if it was not a gas?
He said it was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard when Sean Hawkins said that the flat earthers are saying water vapour's gas. And Phil Bell piped up to say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. What a complete idiot. No, we will
Sean
not only...
Hawkins said it was in a gaseous state, but it wasn't gas.
Yeah, and he was there nodding along. Phil Bell nodding along like the complete clown retard that he is. Yeah, he's working in hydrology. I mean, given that that's the case, he should be sacked. And it's no laughing matter when somebody who works in hydrology and claims to be a professor doesn't understand that water vapour's gas. It just makes him a demonstrated retard. But he's in the chat laughing at us for some reason. This guy agrees with all the morons he surrounds himself with when they say water vapour isn't gas, and we're stupid and worthy of laughing at, like Phil's laughing now. Are you laughing like you were laughing on that panel, Phil Bell? Because you were laughing at us saying water vapour is gas. That's what you were all laughing about. You said how dumb it was? Is that what you're laughing at now, Phil? Because we're laughing at you morons with your PhDs. Yeah? We're laughing at you. Thunderfoot. He thinks gas behaves like solid with his PhD. A moron like you, Phil. And we're laughing at you morons. Because having your globe faith is an embarrassment when you come to encounter us. Because you make declarations like water vapour is not gas. Or solid behaves like bouncy balls. You're just stupid. Now, I don't actually think Phil Bell's stupid. Just Phil Bell is only demonstrating stupidity because of his religious belief. Often religious zealots make themselves look stupid in defence of their religious faith. Now, just Phil Bell's no exception. He's an idiot. Now, why is he stating that water vapour isn't gas in agreement with his compadres? Well, because water vapour wouldn't be go down, go boom, boom like solid bonded bouncy balls, as asserted by Thunderfoot, with this downward vector of gravity that they all believe in. So when they're all patting each other on the back telling them about downward vectors and gravity, suddenly they've got this problem. That water vapour would defy that, wouldn't it now? As it goes up from the ground, not down. So they deny that it's a gas, not realising they're broadcasting to an audience. And we're laughing at them while they assert it for 3 straight days. That water vapour isn't gas. Because gas going up, well, that's just water vapour. That's gaseous. It's not in defiance of gas go down, go boom, boom like bouncy balls. We all agree downward vector. Stupid flat earthers with their water vapour being gas. How moronic, right, Phil Bell? Maybe you'd like to tell us how you only agreed for a few hours or a few days. Yeah? You clown? We're laughing at you, clown. Water vapour is gas, Mr. Professor, I work in hydrology. Water vapour is gas. How does it taste to be told by a flat earther, as a professor working in hydrology, that water vapour is gas, you clown moron? How does that taste? It must really sting to have a flat earther telling you as a professor of hydrology that water vapour is gas, you moron. Why would you laugh along with idiots saying that it isn't? You complete idiot. You are laughable. You are a clown, Phil Bell.
Hey, Nathan, he says, what causes fog? So he doesn't understand that condensing water vapour into condensing droplets of water is different to gas vapour. He doesn't realise that there's a difference between condensing vapour and vapour. He thinks that water vapour is fog. Oh, dear.
A man who works in hydrology. Like I say, he's in the chat with his laughy face, projecting out how funny this is. Yeah, we find it really funny too, Phil Bell. how funny it is that you were laughing at us for saying water vapor's gas. That's moronic. Anyway, if you are watching this, go on, you have the last word.
Okay, I was to say, if you're going to equate bouncy balls to gas particles, then show these bouncy balls moving in 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles an hour with innate kinetic energy within them. Innate kinetic energy. Then we can talk.
Right on. If you are watching this live, then go over to the premiering stream, which has started now on this channel. So Nathan Oakley 1980 has a premiering stream starting at 3 p.m, which is about now-ish. So go over there, be here, be sphere. I'll be in the chat with you, hopefully. If you are watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!